The Democratic Alliance is this afternoon calling for Parliament to reconvene urgently. In a letter written to the Speaker of Parliament, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, the leader of the official opposition, John Steenhuisen, says the meeting or the reconvening of Parliament should happen soon to find solutions to the current crises around load shedding, fuel price hikes, as well as the high cost of living. Among the other issues that the DA would want discussed is the Phala Phala farm scandal involving President Cyril Ramaphosa. Let's speak about all of this with DA leader John Steenhuisen, who joins us now. Good to have you on Daytime Update, sir. So Parliament has discussed at least most of these issues in the past. I'm referring to the energy crisis in particular at this moment. What would another discussion, another debate achieve?
Well, it's not so much about the debate and the discussion. It's about getting people around the table to come up with solutions, because it's very clear that the executive in South Africa, the cabinet in South Africa, do not have a solution to the problem. And this is exactly an apposite time for Parliament to step in. We've got over 400 members of Parliament in the National Assembly, and these members of Parliament should be sitting around the clock, coming up with solutions to the problems that South Africans are facing, not only with load shedding, but with violent crime on the increase, with growing civil unrest, with fuel prices that are flying through the roof, and the cost of living crisis that is leaving many people hungry. It's inconceivable that in a time of great national crisis, where so many crises are hitting us simultaneously, that Parliament is closed and the MPs are not at the desk, sitting around the table, coming up with the solutions to these problems and holding the executive accountable for their failures to be able to take action. Now's the time for Parliament to be passing emergency laws, to be able to put forward emergency solutions on the table, and yet the lights are off in the National Assembly. And I think the South African citizens deserve more from their Parliament than for a further 6-week extended break while the country lurches into even deeper crisis.
So that sounds great on paper, right? Members of Parliament coming together from across the political spectrum, yes, to seek solutions and perhaps, as you suggest, pass emergency laws to try and remedy this crisis on the energy front, cost of living as well. But given just how divided you all are along political party lines, realistically, though, what are the chances that it won't just turn into another session where it's ANC versus DA versus EFF versus IFP, and so goes the list?
Well, I think that the country is in such deep crisis now that it's now transcending party politics. And what we should be doing is not seeking the ANC solution or the DA solution or the EFF solution. We should be seeking a solution to these problems. We've already put on the table a number of very, very important interventions that could have been made a number of months ago around the food price increase. For instance, dropping VAT on certain meat and chicken products so that citizens can have protein. We've already put on the table a number of plans that could be used to be able to ameliorate against the fuel price increase. And we've also put into motion plans to localize policing so that we can get on top of crime. I think that it's time now for the Pollyanna politics to stop and for South Africa's legislators to come together in Parliament and start earning their money and doing work for the people of South Africa. It's just simply not right that Parliament is closed while so many South African citizens are vulnerable. And I really think that the situation now transcends party politics, and we need to be coming up with the best possible solution to get us out of the energy crisis, to resolve the fuel price increase. It's not time for political haggling. There's solutions that are going to bring relief, or they're not going to bring relief. And we should be looking at those solutions that are going to bring immediate relief to ordinary South Africans. That's what they're looking to their public representatives to do.
How hard are you lobbying for support of the interventions that you've just listed as possible solutions? I mean, I know you've also put forward a bill now before Parliament proposing the deregulation around the fuel sector in order to bring down petrol prices. One of the things you say is that it would basically allow for more competitive space on that front. So are you trying to get other parties on board?
Yes, and I think that the electorate should also be pressurising the parties that they voted for to get behind these suggestions. Cutting the tax on fuel, the fuel levy, reducing the RAF rate to people who have already got private insurance are some of the measures that could bring immediate relief on the petrol price. We keep hearing from government that, and I mean, noticeably not from the President, who seems to be completely absent from this crisis, but we keep hearing from government ministers that the price of fuel is because of the global headwinds. Well, that may be the case, but why is fuel in Botswana, Namibia, Mozambique 5 to 6 rand cheaper at the moment than it is in South Africa? It's because their governments don't tax it as much, and in so doing are able to bring relief to their citizens. This is a type of urgent intervention that South Africa needs now to be able to get through this crisis. South Africa's economy is very low in the water already, and it's now being buffeted by these massive waves that are breaking over the decks. And the captain of the ship, Ramaphosa, has got his head in the sand. He won't talk about Phala Phala. He won't talk about the crisis. And if he won't talk about it, then surely Parliament should reconvene and force him to talk about it. That's what a Parliament is there to do. I think if you've seen how robust the UK Parliament has been around Boris Johnson, holding that Prime Minister accountable, we need the same robustness here. One compares the sins of omission and commission and the cloud that Ramaphosa is under to the one that Boris Johnson is about to resign under. Well, I mean, it's like the difference between a mountain and a molehill. And here we are in South Africa, blithely stumbling on crisis to crisis, letting the president get away with no accountability. It's been almost 11 days since we requested an ad hoc committee to investigate the Phala Phala matter because the president simply thinks that by keeping quiet about it, it's going to go away. And we cannot repeat the same mistakes that Mogoeng criticized us for in the Nkandla judgment, and we can't fall into, as Parliament, the same pitfalls that Zondo has displayed so embarrassingly to Parliament in the Zondo Commission reports.
So, when you wrote to the Speaker requesting the establishment of the ad hoc committee, you say you did that, 10 days ago now, plus? And I'm now looking at what you were saying about the inaction from the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, the questions you want him to answer on Phala Phala. And listening to you speak, I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that that's likely to then get the backs of ANC MPs up. And once again, South Africans are going to see what so many people are fed up with, where we listen to 3, 4, 5 hours of political bickering, and at the end, no one can actually tell what's been achieved. What do we need to fix in Parliament to make sure that these sessions are actually productive and not just an opportunity for politicians to argue among themselves?
Well, I don't think that asking the president to answer questions about why he had large sums of money stashed in his home, why it was not reported to the police, and why state resources were used as a cover for his private business is bickering. I think that's exactly what a parliament should be doing. And in fact, the problem lies here in the fact that the ANC MPs should equally be demanding these answers. They're there to represent the people of South Africa, not to protect the president. And they're falling into the same trap that we saw with Nkandla, with Nkandla Gate, with Waterkloof landings, and with every one of the problems that the Zondo Commission has uncovered, with a parliament that's working to protect the president rather than to hold him accountable. And so ANC MPs should be champing at the bit as much as any other MPs in Parliament to fulfill their constitutional obligation that they took an oath of office to uphold, and demanding these answers. And the president says he answers written questions. Well, he didn't answer the written questions that I submitted. He said that he's submitting himself to processes. Well, since when does the fact that you're involved in one process inoculate you against parliamentary oversight? And I'm afraid that if a robust parliament is very different to a parliament where people are screaming on microphones and having to be hauled out. A parliament that does its job ends up with exactly the type of response we're seeing in the United Kingdom now, where those who need to be held accountable are held accountable, and that there are consequences for them.
And let's talk about you mentioned oversight. I want to talk about the issue of the portfolio committees in Parliament and how crucial their role is now going to become, given that the country is facing crises on multiple fronts. What's going to be required of those committees to make sure that there's not only MPs, the heads of SOEs, coming forward to give a report, but actually that they are doing work?
Well, what those committees should be doing is sitting around the clock, working late into the night, trying to find solutions to the problems. We should be flying in international experts in energy to come and brief the portfolio committee on what needs to be done. We should be following the example of other countries like Thailand, who were also faced with load shedding and severe constraints on their electricity supply. With their case, it was a rapid economic growth. I wish that was the case here, but it's Eskom breakdown and incompetence and government incompetence that's led to our blackouts. And they immediately opened up the grid. And within a year, they were load shedding free and had an excess surplus of electricity. Why are we not bringing those experts in? Why are we not Zooming with energy experts around the world as portfolio committees and putting their heads together and coming up for a solution? If you look at the latest press statements from Eskom and from government, they're just saying, well, Eskom load shedding is going to just be a fact of life for the coming years. How can that be? How can we grow an economy with an electricity supply that cannot even keep the lights on? And with a 42% unemployment rate in the country. It's just not conceivable. And all these promises of economic growth that government keeps making are impossible to achieve without the basics like water, electricity, and those basic services being provided. So instead of not being in Parliament and sitting around desks till late at night, and citizens should be demanding this from their members of Parliament, saying, where are the solutions? Come up, we want to see solutions.
Right.
You can't just keep blaming the executive. You guys have got to come up with some solutions and use your parliamentary powers of subpoena, of interrogation to be able to get to the bottom of these crises and find solutions for the people of South Africa.
John Steenhuisen, leader of the Democratic Alliance, good to have your time. Thank you.